The supposed decline of SCP has been quoted again and again. Hi there, my name is Ninetail. Yes, it is a math joke. The question is if it really did have a marketable point where it did decline. Now, I'm sure you, the random viewer, will think this is some deep-seated operation to change your opinion. Sorry to say, but this is a selfish quest and more of a curiosity. The SCP Foundation, or Secure, Contain, Protect, is a collaborative writing project that started somewhere on the internet. People often quote 4chan's X-board as its origin point, but I do not trust non-posters to make anything of worth or tell the truth, so it is a mystery. The introduction guide is something, and leaves something to be desired, but the premise of the project is thus. The fantastical, horrifying, eldritch, and magical are real, and they do not live in harmony with our world. As such, the Foundation, otherwise known as the SCP Foundation, was established to contain, neutralize, and generally keep the world functioning despite the odds being stacked against them. How wholesome. Another thing, which is our first issue, is that the site, wiki, call it what you will, has no official canon. If it clicked into your head of why you didn't like SCP, this is probably one of the contributing factors. I'm appealing to that sense, but stick with me here. Now, for a collaborative writing project, I understand the reason why one would do this. Ultimately, it is about creative freedom and letting everybody contribute, but having a Vulcan minigun approach has consequences. That is a quantity over quality problem. Well, quote-unquote problem. Even saying that, you're one of two camps. SCP has always sucked, or let people have fun. Those mindsets are not going to help you here. Why? Because I am going entry by entry. Not fully because that is theft, but a review of each and every SCP to the end of the site's current catalog, which would be 8,999. Perhaps God weeps at what he has created. I am going from 1 to 8,999. Given the length of this, it'll be a series and my regular captioning where we pause until I have done at least 5 of these videos. Additionally, I am no arbiter of quality, nor will I pretend to be someone of high importance. This isn't an objective review, it's subjective. I'm a dude, technically they, them, on the internet. If you are interested, comment your own thoughts or pick apart my points when I make them. Before we begin, terms and rules. We are using John Updike's rules for criticism from his book, Picked Up Pieces. For some reason, YouTube recommends me more to mobile viewers. Yes, I know you aren't watching the video proper. I'll read out every rule and have a picture up for you to scroll back to. Quote from Picked Up Pieces, the paperback, by digitally scanned EPUB from 2012 Random House Trade. Rule 1. Try to understand what the author wished to do, and do not blame him for what he did not attempt. Rule 2. Give enough direct quotation, at least one extended passage, of the book's prose, so the review's reader can form his own impressions, can get his own taste. Rule 3. Confirm your description of the book with quotation from the book, if only phrase long, rather than proceeding by fuzzy precis. Rule 4. Go easy on plot summary, and do not give away the ending. How astounded and indignant was I when innocent to find reviewers blabbing and with sublime inaccuracy of drunken lords reporting on a peasant's revolt, all the turns of my suspenseful and surpriseful narrative. Most ironically, the only readers who approach a book as the author intends, unpolluted by pre-knowledge of the plot and the detested reviewers themselves. And then years later, the blessed fool who picks the volume at random from a library shelf. Rule 5. If the book is judged deficient, cite a successful example along the same lines from the author's oeuvre or elsewhere. Try to understand the failure. Sure, it's his and not yours. To these concrete 5 might be added a vaguer 6, having to do with maintaining a chemical purity in the reaction between product and appraiser. Do not accept for review a book you are predisposed to dislike or committed by friendship to like. Do not imagine yourself a caretaker of any tradition, an enforcer of any party standards, a warrior in any ideological battle, a corrections officer of any kind. Never, never, John Aldridge, Norman Podderetz, try to put the author in his place, making of him a pawn in a contest with other reviewers. Review the book, not the reputation. Submit to whatever spell, weak or strong, is being cast. Better to praise and share than blame and ban. The communion between reviewer and his public is based upon the presumption of certain possible joys of reading, and all our discrimination should curve toward that end. Additionally, myself, this is not from Picked Up Pieces, I have a star system to rate my enjoyment of every SCP I come across. It is not indicative of quality. It is not an objective standard of quality. It is a tally system to help keep track of everything. Yes, I have a spreadsheet, it's at the end of this video. Now, this mainly regards books, but we will mold it to our chosen topic. I trust in your abilities and hope you understand too. If not, ruminate on it. This video is long enough. Next is, anomaly and anomalous are two different terms. One is an oddity and animated, the other is an object. There are three classifications within the SCP Foundation: safe, Euclid, Keter. This is a danger level, in essence, but just because something is safe doesn't mean it cannot harm you. Strange, I know, but the anomaly may not kill you outright immediately, but it can still give you cancer. It can be contained safely, but it still has effects. Euclid is a coin toss. Maybe it'll stay in its concrete box, or maybe it won't. Maybe it'll roam around, and if disturbed, it'll kill someone, or make them disappear. Maybe it'll just bother them and return to its box. Who knows? Keter is an active threat, and has to have eyes on them at all times, in a way. It could not be able to be watched, but once it escapes, it's priority number one to get it back into containment. There's more, but we will get to them when we get to them. Now, enough preamble. SCP-001. The first and the most speculated SCP. What is SCP-1? What is the most devastating and horrifying thing the Foundation has locked away? That which is not even allowed to be known. There is no such thing as SCP-001. That's the beauty of it. The very idea is the SCP itself. Not some grand cosmic entity or world-ending device. The sun melting away the world, eldritch god. It's the literal understanding of the SCP Foundation. One might say a fourth wall break of its characters' understanding that they are in a story and at the whim of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of knowable beings, of humanity itself. SCP-001 isn't going to ever be put into a proper story or have an entry. I'll bring out a Warhammer comparison. It's like the Lost Primarchs. SCP-001 is what you want it to be, whatever that may be. Its literal existence is anomalous. It is a blank slate of paper which can hold multiple copies of whatever you write. You can reference other proposals for ideas, but then again, there will never be an SCP-001. It both exists and it does not. My only criticism is the proposals themselves and the medic kill agent thing. Look, it's cute the whole K-Fab thing and doing in-universe stuff, but it gets annoying, and for someone like myself, who has a case of tinnitus, it makes it flare up bad whenever I hear that whining button buzz. For a wiki page, it can work, but not videos. The proposals, whilst fine, go against the idea of SCP-001 personally. If it only had a few, say, barely 5 entries and they fed into each other, acting as a bit of a, like a CIA op, it's misinformation as to what it is, it'd work, but it has more than 20 proposals, and I originally thought to go through them, but I'll say that for maybe after everything. Props to the first 3 chronological entries, they are enjoyable, I'm sure the rest are as well. Next, SCP-002, Euclid. The giant flesh tumor apartment from Portugal, which originally came from space. The concept, it's just a flesh ball with the interior of an apartment, and those who step inside of it become part of it. Only humans though, not anything else. It needs an external power source to keep it in a recharging mode. Good overall use of the concept, it's a foreign object from who knows where and built suspense with the mention of it harvesting humans and furnishing itself with said humans. This poses a question of what it needs all that meat for. I feel the mention of an external power source is unnecessary. The base concept is fine enough and seems to be an additional layer of complexity for complexity's sake. What it seems to me, anyway, the power supply thing was a vestigial limb after a draft that the original author left in. The mention of it being a modest low-rent apartment is lacking. Depending on where you are from, low rent could mean the ceiling is falling apart, no water or electricity, or it could just mean the apartment is uncomfortably small and claustrophobic. A simple comparison, perhaps a low-rent apartment in Portugal, would have tied everything together better. The addition of a discovery report, I feel devalues the entry. You could keep the initial bit of where it was discovered and the repercussions therein, but the luring in of SCP personnel during transport and then some incident stretches the concept a bit taut. The Foundation and the house are already good, you don't need another layer of paint. Otherwise, overall, pretty good. No additional notes. 3 out of 5 stars. SCP-003, Euclid. The living biological motherboard. Pretty self-explanatory, need to have its temperature regulated at 35 degrees and ideally be at 100 degrees, and is made up of 2 parts, SCP-003-1 and -2. quote, no living multicellular organisms of category 4? I don't read Roman numerals, correct me in the comments, or higher complexity may be allowed to come into contact with SCP-003. The addendum further elaborates on what will happen if this occurs, and if it is not kept at least 35 degrees. -2 is a controller, or, well, container. It's a small little module on the motherboard which manages the growth on the board. If the board is not temperature regulated, it'll grow and expand. The -2 is a controller in that it'll release bursts of radiation in order to control and stop -1 from fully forming into whatever it is trying to become. However, the Foundation cannot remove this seemingly self-aware part of the board, and instead are trying to keep it alive in order to prevent -1 from fully forming. -1 is composed of chitin, hair, and nails of unknown origin, arranged in the way of a computer's motherboard. But the real question is if we can fit a 5090 onto the board. That's a sure way to terminate it. -2 is a stone tablet which contains this anomaly, predating the earliest known circuit boards. What an oddity, huh? The addendum and subsequent small report, again, to repeat my previous criticism of 002, the concept, golden, executed well, but attempting to add that little bit of spice, I feel, ruins the overall theme. The report giving more credence that it is interested in understanding and perhaps being somewhat sentient, I cannot help but think of the comparison towards Am from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, but more neutral? In a way, it's an iffy comparison, I admit. Overextends, but otherwise enjoyable. 4 out of 5. Next, SCP-004, Euclid, the 12 rusty keys and the door. The door is attached to a factory and a pair of 12 rusty keys somewhere about. A majority of them lead to rapid dismemberment, but 2 lead elsewhere. One to severe psychological damage, and the other to an impressively spacious room. Far too spacious for the factory it supposedly leads into. A space-time anomaly, how reminiscent of Call of Pripyat. Simple, effective, and to the point. No notes. 4 out of 5. SCP-005, Safe. The skeleton key. It, says what it does on the tin. The skeleton key is capable of opening any lock, be it physical, digital, but it can be fooled if the holder cannot understand that the object before them is capable of being unlocked. Simple, short, to the point. 5 out of 5. Next. SCP-006, Safe. The Fountain of Youth. It's just the legend of the Fountain of Youth. Those who drink from its water shall be healed and youth returned to them, be they animal or higher being. Simple, if a bit dull, but otherwise, no notes. 2 out of 5. SCP-007, Euclid. The Abdominal Planet. It's a guy. A Caucasian male with a replica of Earth in his abdomen. He's pretty alright, very personable, and plays chess with some of the researchers. As for a computer and internet connection, Foundation said no. The real intrigue is that humanity does exist on the replica Earth, and, like fools, the Foundation wants to make contact. Putting the question forth, is the Earth the Foundation on communicating with another Foundation? Also the fact he just woke up with a planet in him one day and his reaction being, interesting. Back to work it is. Perhaps it may be a reference to metamorphosis. Fascinating and somewhat humorous. 4 out of 5. SCP-008, Euclid. Zombie Plague. Does what it says on the tin. It's just a zombie virus. Doesn't even feel like they tried. Though, in fairness, this was posted around about the whole zombie media craze, so par for the course. 05. SCP-009, Euclid. Red Ice. Another simple one, anomalous water that can infect other liquid sources to propagate itself. Not malicious, but also dangerous. It's also red instead of blue. The exploration log is a nice bonus, but doesn't contribute much. I can see it was an attempt to build 009 up, but I feel it failed as the concept already is more suited to a slow horror rather than overt. I feel the log could be scrapped and then in its place a simple paragraph recounting an incident where 009 took the lives of the MTF, but for what it attempts, not too shabby. 3 out of 5. SCP-010, Safe. Collars of Control. Says what it does on the tin, put one of these collars around someone's neck and you'll be able to control them wholesale. Even morph their body should you understand which button does which. 6 cast iron collars. Don't let Skyrim modders hear about this one. Interesting. No notes. 3 out of 5. SCP-011, Safe. Sentient Civil War Memorial Statue. Another obvious one. It's quite humorous that it can load its granite musket and fire at passing birds, sometimes humans, and it gets distressed when the birds cover him in crap. No notes, very enjoyable, 5 out of 5. SCP-012, Euclid, a bad composition. The knowledge around you will know this little number appeared in the original Containment Breach fan game, despite the nostalgia of ancient times. It is a simple sheet of music that, upon looking at it, you are compelled to complete it. But you shall never, as it drives you to madness, so you delve further into your body for more ink, for more blood, until you drop from blood loss, or are ripped away from it. No notes, cursed object, very spooky, 4 out of 5. SCP-013, Safe, Blue Lady Cigarettes. Happens to a buddy of mine once, told him not to smoke the stuff, said he'd not become a woman. Joke's on her now, huh? The real question is if someone has referred to this as the mental transition cigarette. You smoke one of these and you'll think of yourself as some lady, a pretty lady, and then just be stuck like that for the rest of your life. It's wholly mental, and even a whiff of the smoke can cause it to occur too. An interesting concept for its time, and it has aged well. My only note is thus, quote, woke cigarette, 5 out of 5 stars. SCP-014, Safe, the Concrete Man. Despite the name, he is not made of concrete. He was an insane asylum patient who thinks of himself with a rare condition which transforms his body to concrete. Completely in his mind, mind you, but through this mental fortitude and will, he has willed himself to be just that. He does not eat, drink, perspire, that's sweating, by the way. He can converse, but he is otherwise still. A wonderful execution reminds me of an old X thread where some guy tried to manifest telekinetic powers and claimed he could. Shame what happened to him. Mental or physical manifestation. Very interesting. No notes, 3 out of 5. SCP-015, Euclid, Pipe Nightmare, more accurately, Pipe Hell. This one speaks to me on a spiritual level because I am reminded of all my Factorial days where the pipes somehow create this hell system that I cannot touch without breaking everything. Pipes, vents, boilers, and plumbing apparatuses. Actually, I retract my previous statement and comparison. This is New York in current day. It grows like a cancer and seeks to engulf other buildings and infrastructure. It possesses some form of intelligence, as anyone approaching with power tools or tools in general will cause it to react. The pipes will burst and spray a variety of liquids at the attacker, ranging from hot oil, mercury, living rats, insects, and of course, molten iron. I feel sorry for the poor guy who got the molten iron. Cancer pipes. A terrifying concept, and at odds with Uncle Ted. Perhaps he was right about the Industrial Revolution given this avaricious beast of living pipe. Pipes aren't normal either. It's bones and stuff. Spooky. What if pipes but scary? Is my only note. A simple idea, somewhat flawless execution, doesn't overstay its welcome even with the short story that accompanies it. Wonderful, 4 out of 5 stars. SCP-016, Keter, Sentient Microorganism. I fear this one is a total failure to me. It has two ideas, spreading itself, and if a host has a stress response that it'll mutate the host in some way under certain circumstances. The problem is the spreading method. I get what they wanted to go with the hemorrhagic fever, Ebola, or Marburg, by the way, but I feel this is too far a step to earn that Keter classification. The microorganism already infesting the host and then making changes depending on a high-stress event, such as one's life being threatened, is horrific enough without the total exsanguination of someone being described, at least in passing. It could spread via normal means, cuts, open wounds, etc., but it seems counterproductive because it is mentioned later in the report that it will send the host into a rabies-like state after a successful transformation, and you could have ran with that. You could have wound the transformation into the spreading method better. Once transformed, then it'll spread faster depending on whatever the host transformed into. Vampire and werewolf rules, essentially, you know? It could still be bloody through this way of spreading, make no mistake. It's gross out violence for the sake of gross out violence. Does it work? Sure. But it'd be much better suited to a slow burn and then payoff rather than blood everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Still a modest attempt, even if gross. 1 out of 5. SCP-017, Keter, Shadow Person. Schizophrenics rejoice. People comprehend the amorphous and absorbing mass of the shadow people. In this case, person. Yippee! It's a child-shaped person thing in a smoke shroud. It is a void shadow. It takes things from the shadows and just disappears them. No notes. It's simple. 3 out of 5. SCP-018, Euclid, Super Ball. It is a very efficient bouncy ball. It is a multiplicative bouncy ball. 1 meter to 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. Its speed ramps up and everything in the way is subject to the test of being an immovable object or a newly formed fog of red mist. If it turns out this is an Acme product, I would believe you wholesale. A simple concept with so many possible scenarios. Dare I say masterfully crafted and doesn't overstay its welcome. The research and development emails are lacking with the addendums. I feel it would be better if it were removed and let other authors play around with the concept themselves. Mentions of R&D is cute, but takes one step too far. This also appears in SCP Secret Laboratory, if my memory serves me well enough. A Foretail, fact check me if I'm wrong. 4 out of 5 stars. SCP-019, Keter, the Monster Pot. Another failure, but not due to the body of text or concept. That's perfectly fine, it's just the addition of this image. I can tell this is a Sphinx cat, mucked up in Photoshop with the Gaussian blur, maybe rotational blur, and the smudge tool. Whilst I can't applaud the effort in trying to create assets for the story, I believe it detracts and should have solely remained described rather than attempted to be shown. If this sounds similar to the concept of show, do not tell, but instead is the inverse of tell, do not show, then you'd be on to my train of thought. Yes, SCP entries are formatted as documents and they'd have pictures, but it removes some of the intrigue when the pot which produces these supposed monsters is just popping out, sphinxes. Far be it from me to assume hatred on the part of the author, but it feels rather heartless to associate such a creature as a monster, though that is a personal complaint rather than one aimed at the body of text. I shall applaud the addendum with its research since it builds just enough to earn that Keter classification with the implication the pot has some level of sentience, and evolution therein, and that further containment may need to change over time as it adapts. Real ticking time bomb. Very well done. 5 out of 5. SCP-020, Keter, unseen mold, predatory mold, perhaps sentient. It can infect people and is invisible to people under normal means as it affects one's perception of the world around them. Through this, it spreads and propagates, infecting more people and eventually killing them as it reaches a critical mass. But it can be seen through cameras and surveillance. I can tell a British person wrote this. This is not a knock against the SCP itself, it's a personal insult directed at someone I know watches this. You are merely hearing the vocalization. No notes, 2 out of 5. SCP-021, Skinworm. Yeah, it's not a dragon, smartass, proud of yourself for standing out. Minor mythological annoyance aside, someone wanted to show off their tattoo. It looks nice, by the way. It's a living dragon tattoo. It eats melanin and other tattoos. You tried, but a, quote, parasitic tattoo whose only downside is that it is alive and moving around on your skin. Of course it's painful when it moves, and you can feed it tattoos in order to keep it on the host. I feel as if something more could have been done. I think they originally wanted to perhaps go in the direction of having a sentient living dragon tattoo, but felt that was too far-fetched, when in fact it would have helped it stand out more. You could tie it into the concept of yin and yang depending on who has a tattoo on their arm. You know, one person's good, the other's bad, something like that. As it is right now, I feel this is more a draft rather than complete. That and the mention of it being the best to spread via sexual intercourse is just disgusting, not, oh, that's horrifying, more, ew. 0 out of 5. SCP-022, Euclid, the Morgue. As is tradition in Great Britain, a morgue has become more anomalous and taken to reviving random human cadavers that it steals from other morgues and or graves. It then reanimates them, but no zombie rules. Said reanimated corpses will then try to escape. More often than not, they fail because a rotten or decomposing corpse's motor functions are lacking, to say the least. A good twist on the idea of resurrection. Quite Dead Space. 3 out of 5 stars. SCP-023, Euclid, Black Shuck. I had the strange sense of deja vu and thought black luck was a concept, but no. A large, sexless, shaggy canine with black fur. It's a hellhound. A folklore hellhound that is an omen of death, and the SCP does just that. If you look at it, it'll take the life of someone you know after 1 year has passed. I have nothing positive to say about this. I find it lazy that it is just folklore, but real, and the added bit of it preferring crossroads is not lost on anyone for symbolism. It's an omen of death. I give the writer props for spotlighting folklore, but it feels the equivalent of a copy and paste. 1 out of 5. SCP-024, The Game Show of Death. Now this is simple and funny. A randomized game show filled with obstacles, dangers, and who knows what else, all commentated over from a lovely announcer. If you've ever watched a game show, Steve Harvey clips count too, then that's pretty much the vibe. The prizes are good as well, from large cash bounties and perhaps more anomalous objects. The cost? Your life! If you lose and any other contestants lose, gone, taken from existence. If you win, you get your life, and an illustrious grand prize. No notes, 4 out of 5 stars. SCP-025, safe. A well-worn wardrobe. Tongue twister. Ah! Whatever flaw in the clothing, you shall suffer an injury or disease, perhaps the loss of an organ. A glove missing a finger? Say goodbye to that digit, buddy. No notes, 2 out of 5. SCP-026, Euclid. After school retention. A condemned old building which is a spatial anomaly. The reference to roadside picnic is cute and gives it the ghost that this is a stalker reference, or at least in part a stalker reference. Maybe I'm digging too deep. But what about Roadside Picnic the book? Let's be honest, you've never read it. I'm not going to pretend I did either. Actually, I am reading it whilst making this video. Funny, huh? I want to, but future me problem. Hee hee. Those who go within are trapped and fall asleep, and some children are trapped inside as well, ranging from 8 to 12. Various subjects are written on the blackboards. Removing the children will kill them, and any person removed who falls asleep inside are safe to remove but trapped in some weird dream of a school. The mention of eugenics being in one of the potential sightings is a choice? It feels strange and out of place, but I suppose that's a point considering quantum entanglement is next on the list, but it stands out as strange for a mention. Is the author attempting to communicate that the spatial anomaly is taken from multiple points in the stream of time? No, because the supposed spatial anomaly is a lie, and was removed for a reference to mention Mobile Task Force Row 8 roadside picnickers, and instead is merely a change in perception. They neutered my spatial anomaly, man. You can't have anything on the zone. Started off well, but cross out, edit to the article kneecaps its potential, taking it from liminal space to haunted attraction. I see what they were going with, and it would have worked better if the reference was simply removed. You've given up the ghost by referencing something for referencing's sake, even if that's true. Otherwise, mild, 2 out of 5. SCP-027, Euclid, the Vermin God. To be ordained as a god of vermin to have them follow and protect you. Those who are ordained chosen will have rats and various critters follow the host, from the lowliest lice to the mighty rat. However, they shall only gather and grow in strength once the host stands dead still, and will dissipate if they move. The terrible part is that the vermin may nest inside of you. How's that for body horror? This is what the skinworm should have been, at least in concept, an infection or chosen host for something that doesn't necessarily kill its host. Death is more a byproduct of being chosen. The added details of the addendum are fantastic as well, implying that the newer host is left alone out of fear that 027 will spread. Didn't think I could pair things, did you? Surprise. Enjoyable, 4 out of 5. SCP-028, safe. Knowledge. An old abandoned copper mine in Michigan, which can gift you complete understanding of a subject, but it's randomized. Knowledge beyond mortal understanding? Covered. Proper care and upkeep of a mole rat colony? Also covered. Maybe you'll get lucky and even find out possible knowledge of some undiscovered SCPs. The possibilities are endless. No notes, good concept. 3 out of 5. SCP-029, Keter, Daughter of Shadows. This is a woman. Dear God. There's more. No! Team Fortress 2 reference aside, it is a shadow lady, literally. She is homicidal and doesn't like men at all. Slay, sister. These few unfortunate males who do enter her sight are awestruck and let themselves be killed or are under her thrall. She is implied to be some kind of deity or perhaps demigod figure, and the Foundation airstriked her worshippers, to which this only made her more mad. B- for effort, guys. My only note is that the description of, and quote, SCP-029 appears to be a pubescent female of Asiatic Indian descent. The word pubescent is a choice. A young female of Asiatic Indian descent would have worked better. You don't need pubescent in there as well. I understand the scientific document format, but please be cautious of the words you use. Otherwise, it's alright. 2 out of 5. SCP-030, safe. The Homunculus. Another myth turned real. Alchemy is real and thus produced a being, a diminutive human with a knowledge within mortal understanding, but needing a vessel with which to teach it. When light touches it, it'll animate and become lively. It can speak a multitude of languages and has a vast majority of its knowledge coming from the 17th century. I feel this is better with taking a concept from our world, in this case alchemy, and putting a proper spin to it. No notes, 4 out of 5. SCP-031, Euclid. What is love? And no, baby, it do hurt me this time. 1993 song By the By. That makes it... That can't be right, 32 years old? Man, I'm 21, why do I feel 36? This time anomaly thing is really something else, not the SCP, the faults are getting louder again. In Lover's Paradise, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Pyongyang, in specific, the Ryugyang Hotel. I probably pronounced that wrong. Within this noble-looking building, a gigantic parasitic organism which has infected the ductwork and maintenance infrastructure, one wonders how you figured out it weighs 7,500 kilograms. No, I'm not translating that into pounds and cull such an entity. Tendrils emerge from said ductworks and form pods. These pods attempt to lure people in and take the form of someone's beloved or the most beautiful person they have seen. Said appearance is not physical, it's wholly mental. It is a giant Venus flytrap that eats brains. Well, incorporates brains into its mass. The exact weight is an easy fix since it can be changed to, it is assumed to have an estimated mass of 7,000 to 7,500 kilograms. Note the wording, weight and mass are different. Or are they? Given the sheer scale of the hotel itself, additionally the mention of two, quote, Type 9 Heaven's Blade restriction systems, which contains its psychic aura. The psychic aura can be removed and instead be restricted to the hotel, and the fear is that it'll spread if it continues to grow and infect other buildings. You know, like pipe hell. This will keep the Euclid classification whilst not resorting to higher tiered concepts. It's a giant amorphous mass that consumes people and spreads. You're golden with that idea and need no more. Fell at the end, but okay overall. 3 out of 5 stars. SCP-032, Euclid. Brother's Bride. It is an imperfect replica of a human, an android, if you would, perhaps an automaton. Woman, third decade of life, and her anomalous property is destroying, quote, SCP-032's presence inevitably causes severe and irreparable damage to the ability of any living organism to exchange and or use energy. I'm sure there is some witty joke I can make about marriage, but I'm not 43, divorced, and balding. The real curiosity is that it was made and sent to the Foundation to be held in indefinite storage whilst its creators wait to activate it or retrieve it. An energy vampire, or in this case, machine. The interviews for the addendums are interesting, but I have nothing bad nor good to say. They are meh. 4 out of 5. SCP-033, Euclid, the missing number or integer. This is a concept that I can say. It professes the idea of what if humanity didn't discover one of the mathematical integers, so 1 plus 1 equals 2, but what if we never discovered 3? That's the basic idea. If we would discover that entire mathematical formula would be destabilized and collapse in on itself because we didn't know that fundamental part. This SCP does that, and any formula system it is introduced in will erode and collapse after 2,560 seconds, to which it'll then transfer to another applicable medium such as another piece of paper, electronic, or otherwise. My only criticism is the exact second amount seems unnecessary and would do better if it were formatted as 42 minutes, 2,560 seconds. Yes, that isn't divisible by 60, shush. Otherwise, pretty good. 4 out of 5. SCP-034, Safe, Obsidian Ritual Knife. A knife made from obsidian, sharp as the day it was made and used in Native American rituals and assumed to be over 1,000 years of age. The real interest comes in that it is capable of mimicking whatever it cuts, so long as it is human. Now this mimicry is perfect, too perfect, because it'll change your body and you still retain every memory you previously had. Severe psychological trauma, ho! The length of this living disguise is dependent on two things, the original host being alive, and how much you cut from said host. Talk about skinwalking, literally. No notes, 5 out of 5. SCP-035, Possessive Mask. You've seen this before in the classic SCP containment breach. It's simple, a theater comedy mask. sometimes tragedy, that constantly emits a corrosive substance only viewable from the front, and lures those who gaze upon it. Those who do put it on suffer brain death, and 035 takes control of them. 035 is amiable and quite the conversationalist, however, it is also exceptionally manipulative. No notes, 2 out of 5. SCP-036, Safe, the reincarnation pilgrimage of the Yazidi, or otherwise known as... I'm not even going to try pronouncing that. It is a plane filled with dead pilgrims of the Yazidi faith whom arrive, are identified by the Foundation, and then depart, never to be seen again. Bit bland, but works. 4 out of 5. Dwarf Star. It's a dwarf star. Literally, 5 centimeters in diameter. No notes. 0 out of 5. SCP-038. Safe. The Everything Tree. This tree can clone anything so long as it touches its bark. Human? Yep. Soda? Yep. Electronics? Yeah. Other SCPs? 100%. But it has hard limits, of course, and things that rapidly mature, easily, also degrade fast. SCPs cloned decay, as well as other items, and their anomalous properties are not wholly transferred to the copy. Cool concept and doesn't overstay its welcome. Has some nice inbuilt limits. Masterclass. 3 out of 5. SCP-039. Euclid. Monkey Brain. It's a bunch of proboscis monkeys, no, I'm not showing pictures, look it up yourself, missing pretty much most of their organs, eyes, and mouths. This is more a concept or rather a question. What would happen if we remove most of the organs, or rather, what if one didn't need to eat, sleep, or drink, or just generally worry about anything about survival? It then heads towards making them smarter because they can now focus on the tasks before them better. So, during their experimentation, the guys doing said tests, or rather one of them, taught them how to use power tools and soup up his car. But it doesn't end there, because they also did this to a human. I'll cut this short. This SCP has 2 different ideas of what it wants to be, and the addendums kneecap it hard. The initial portion of, well, the living proboscis monkeys that really shouldn't be alive and possess a greater intelligence, right there is all you need, and you don't need to go further. The addendum of how they came to be focusing on this is good, but it gets itself twisted and tries to go another direction with bringing a human into it. Yes, I know we are descended and have some connections to apes and whatnot, but it seems to be trying harder than it should. Higher intelligence proboscis monkeys that look strange and can be taught to do advanced tasks is fine enough. Remember the KISS principle in writing. Sometimes it's better to just keep it simple. Stupid. Also, the page header on this side is over-engineered on the graphics department. Kothardar Ristrix, writer of this piece, this rewrite is terrible and I cannot rate it because I do not have the original to compare it to. I looked at the comments as well for this piece and see mention of disgraced and permanently banned users, which, okay, fair play for the site's rules, but you should preserve the original no matter the circumstance so that people can learn of why you rewrote it. Even a better header on the page saying, this article has been rewritten, the original can be found here. I'm an outsider looking in and have zero idea of what is going on. If I look like an ass, it's because I have zero idea of why this was rewritten. No, the tag at the bottom is not some kind of answer because people aren't usually looking at that nor navigating the site like this. How am I, a new user, supposed to understand the tagging system and then navigate around it? The help section of the site does an okay job, but what if I want to figure out things myself? Didn't expect me to criticize the site, did you? Back to the SCP. A good example of a rewrite on another site, creepypasta.com, which houses the original Jeff the Killer, does this better alongside its reboot written by Kate Banning Kellum. I despise Mr. Kellum, but I shall give him his dues. It has the original 2012 story and its 2018 rewrite. I'll skin that cat later, but the key here is that I have a point of comparison with which to measure the rewrite's quality. I do not care if it is considered the better by wide consensus. I want to find out myself and do my own comparisons to determine if that is true. SCP-039's original is preserved on a completely separate site, and even then it is a podcast wholly divested from the SCP Foundation itself. It is the SCP Foundation database, that's the name of the podcast, linked in the description. Below, the rules of conduct and quotation, and even then I cannot trust this site as their about page states, thus, in a special note, quote, the podcast presents SCP articles essentially as they are on the IRL website, with only minor changes to make them work in an audio-only format. However, occasionally there are things in the original articles that we are not comfortable presenting as they are. As collaborative fiction that has been organized for many years, the SCP Foundation at times has some elements that are now more widely recognized as being problematic, especially in its earliest writings, which is where our podcast begins. So I cannot even trust this third-party aggregator because it has a chance to be altered for a podcast radio show. I'm going to sound callous and rude, and I apologize in doing so. I do not care how problematic you think the writings are. You do not wipe them away, as this prevents people from learning from mistakes. You may have your grievances and hate that it is so, but rewrites should always have a point of comparison. This is a grievous failure on the SCP site's part, as the original is no longer properly accessible and likely lost forever. If my own stance isn't enough, then my rules also account for this. Quote from the beginning: do not imagine yourself a caretaker of any tradition, an enforcer of any party standards, a warrior in any ideological battle, a corrections officer of any kind. Never, never, John Aldridge, Norman Podderetz, try to put the author in his place, making of him a pawn in a contest with other reviewers. Review the book, not the reputation. I run afoul of this somewhat. I fully admit that in what I just said before, somewhat. I fully admit that. However, just because it is a rule does not mean I am sworn to it as a pious man is to his religion. Rewrites can be great, make no mistake, but if the rewrite is done with hatred or ulterior motive, then I cannot in honesty review it because the words may be tainted in malice and to put another author in their place. Whether you think that is justified or not is up to you. My stance will always be rewrites need the original to compare to. If there is no original and it is rewritten, I am not going to review it. Terrible. SCP-040 Euclid. Evolution's Child. I have to tangent immediately, the different classification is jarring, and once again this is a rewrite with no original to compare with. I'm seeing more names pop up of already established authors within this collaborative writing project use their modicum of fame to do what they want, and then some beef with another site called the RPC Authority? What? 040 itself is fine. It's a child which is capable of manipulating the body of living organisms and instilling an evolutionary change in them, so long as it concentrates and focuses on said changes being enacted. However, if you say were given wings, you'd still need the bodily systems in place, muscle, bone structure, etc., that facilitates those wings working in order to properly use them. Even then, 040 is only capable of changing someone once, and those changed then have a fierce loyalty to them. It's okay, but to repeat myself, another rewrite. I cannot in good faith pass any judgment without the original to compare it to. That's it. Now, the roundup is thus for our tally system. Image on screen now. Look at the screen right now for the first tally. The first 40 SCPs are done, and with this part comes to an end. Stay tuned for the next part, as there will be many, make no mistake. And of course, this is not objective, this is a question I am seeking to answer and making my moves to find that answer. Quote, has SCP declined? It'll take time, but I hope you join me, and of course, if you think I am wrong, point out where and explain yourself. Also, going forward, any rewritten SCPs will be skipped unless the original body of text is available for comparison. That which is rewritten and reviewed here are the only ones. If the original text is found or present, then I shall go back and review them. Otherwise, I shall ignore them. My reason for doing so is a personal rule. I admit, it is a bit pedantic. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. This video was scripted, edited, recorded, drafted, and such by me and only me, Ninetail. Thank you for watching, and I hope you stick around.